Welcome back, students. My last video, I had discussed about a few organelles, and stopped the class with the organelle nucleolus. Now, continuing to that, we are going to discuss about the other organelles as well. Cytoskeleton. Cyto here refers to cell, skeleton refers to a structure. The structure that is going to be provided to the cell is with the help of few components that we call as cytoskeleton. It is made up of proteins, more specifically, microfilaments and microtubules are the important structures of cytoskeleton. Microfilaments are a thread-like structure because we call it as filament and is made up of a protein called as actin. Whereas microtubules, as the name implies, tube-like structure, and it is made up of a protein called as tubulin. As you can see here, we have a microtubule here and we have a microfilament here. It's a structure of a cell. The next organelle is centrioles, which is exclusively found only in animal cell, and it's a pad structure which is found near the nucleus, and it is made up of microtubules. The previous structure, when we discussed about cytoskeleton, I showed you a microtubule. This is how a microtubules, which is made up of a tubulin protein. So as you can see here, the children here are pulling the ropes. Similarly, these microtubules is also will pull the chromosomes inside the cell. When the cell has to divide, the nuclear materials will duplicate, and then each of these duplicated nuclear materials will be attached to these microtubules on either side, and then these microtubules will start to pull those nucleic acids onto the either side. So literally speaking, it is with the help of microtubule. These centrioles are made up of microtubules which will pull the chromosome so that the cell cycle will complete with cytokinesis. We'll be talking about cytokinesis a little later. The next organ, which is also important, is mitochondria in plural, single mitochondrion, which is also has another name called as powerhouse of the cell. Why? Because it generates energy-rich molecule called as ATP. Okay, adenosine triphosphate is the energy-rich molecule. And you can see more number of mitochondria in the cell which are actively involved in generating energy. As you know, muscle generates more energy because it requires energy in order to function. So obviously, muscle cells will have more mitochondria. So muscle will have more mitochondria, and it is present in both plants as well as animal because both of us needs energy for survival. And this is the place where cellular respiration, or we call it as glycolysis, followed by oxidative phosphorylation, a process that ends with production of energy-rich molecule called as ATP. So in order to understand it easily, remember the structure of a groundnut with a shell. Okay, so the mitochondria looks something similar to the groundnut with a shell. Okay, so just remember that so that you can able to remember it easily. And if you look at the structure of mitochondria, it is made up of double membrane. If you can able to recall one more organelle which we had already discussed is cell membrane, which is also made up of double lipid bilayer. So another organelle is mitochondria, and one fascinating aspect or about mitochondria is that apart from nucleus, mitochondria also has its own DNA. And through research, it was confirmed that the DNA from the mother is passed on to the children through this mitochondria. And when you take and see the which DNA is been passed on to the children, you obviously see that this mitochondria is from mother only. Why? Because the egg cytoplasm contains mitochondria, and when the eggs start to fertilize, the mitochondria will be passed on to the next generation. So now the mitochondria has a DNA which is transferred to the through the process called as fertilization. So therefore, you inherited the DNA exclusively your mother DNA only through mitochondria. And structure wise, it is folded towards the inner membrane, and the structure is called as cristae. We call that as cristae. As you can see, this folded structure is called as cristae, and the inner side is called as matrix. So this is the region where the chemical reaction will start to takes place. The next organelle is endoplasmic reticulum, and it is made up of a network of hollow membrane which looks like tubules. Okay, something similar to tubulin. Okay, the previous structure when we discussed, right? So it is a hollow membrane tubes. Okay, and it connects nuclear envelope and cell membrane. So the function is to synthesize cell products that are required for the cell, and also the produced product will be transported through this organelle called as endoplasmic reticulum. There are two types of endoplasmic reticulum, as you can see. You can see one endoplasmic reticulum which is tube-like network, which is having a dot structure here. Because of this presence of dot structure, it looks like rough. Whereas the endoplasmic reticulum on towards the left hand side is also a network of hollow membrane tubes, but it does not have a structure of ribosome, so it looks like smooth. So on type classification, we can classify the endoplasmic reticulum into smooth endoplasmic reticulum and rough endoplasmic reticulum. So this is how a rough endoplasmic reticulum will look, and this is an electron microscope picture to make you understand how a endoplasmic reticulum will look like. So as you can see, a small black dots all are ribosomes. So what the rough endoplasmic reticulum will do? It makes membrane protein, and the protein produced by the rough endoplasmic reticulums are exported out of cells. So we call that as rough endoplasmic reticulum. Next we have smooth endoplasmic reticulum. As I already told you, lack of an organelle called as ribosome. So we call that as smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And what does this smooth endoplasmic reticulum does? It makes membrane lipids, which we call it as steroids. So in the second unit, I'll be discussing in detail about what is steroid. Apart from that, it also regulates very important process of regulating calcium, which is exclusively required for muscle cells. I'll be talking about this in detail as I go through the next unit. And the third important function is it destroys toxic substance. Liver is the organ that destroys toxic substance, but apart from liver, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum also does the same function like liver. Now, the another organelle is called as ribosomes. It is made up of protein and also ribosomal RNA. So we can call the ribosome as protein machine. Why? Because this organelle is designated to synthesize protein by joining amino acids one to next to make protein. As you can see, each of the spherical structure with colored is a type of an amino acid which is joined one to next by one another, and this entire structure is referred as protein. But the single structure, a spherical structure here is called as amino acid. So in order to make protein, ribosome is a machine that will unite or join each amino acids and convert this as a protein. We'll be discussing in detail about this ribosome structure and its function when we detailedly discuss about protein synthesis topic. The next organelle is Golgi body. It's a stack of flattened stack. As you can see that looks like a flattened stacks. And this is involved in transport purpose. Okay, whatever the cell is making up any biomolecules or organic molecules, these molecules are going to be transported through Golgi bodies, which has two end. One is cis end, another one is trans end. Okay, so it is like a transporting organelle. Okay, so through cis side it will receive the product, and to trans side it will export the product. Okay, so that is the function of Golgi body, and it looks something like a pancake. So in order to easy to remember it, you can remember the structure of a pancake. Golgi bodies are stack of a pancake. So function is to modify, sort and package the molecules that are produced inside the cell, and then it can store for a while, or it can also transport it. The next organelle is called as lysosomes. As the word implies, lyso refers to destruction. Somes refers to an collection of enzymes. A collection of enzymes which is designated to destroy things that are not required inside the cell. So we call that as lysosome. So it obviously contains digestive enzyme and it breaks down food, in certain cases bacteria, and we call that process as phagocytosis. In certain cases, this lysosomes is also involved in autolysis, a process by which unwanted cell, a cell which does not fully functional, has to be removed from the system. In order to remove that, lysosomes plays a very important role. So few examples are shown here. One is phagocytosis. It's a process of breaking down or removing the bacteria or any other microorganisms inside the cell or inside the system. Okay, it how does it does? It has the lytic enzymes inside it, so it can able to destroy and degrade it. So we call it as lysosome. So all those organelles which we have discussed so far is common for both animal cell and plant cell. And now we are going to talk about an organelle which is exclusively present in plant cell. So vacuoles is the first organelle in plant cell. As you can see, huge hollow vacant space which is fully filled with a very nutrient rich component called as sap. Okay, so plant cell will have a huge sap, whereas animal cell sometimes you may see a vacuole which is very small, or in more of the cases you will not see any vacuole. So if it is vacuole, it is present only in the animal cell. It is not present in, it is present only in the plant cell, and it is not present in the animal cell, also in the bacterial cell. So this sap is rich with nutrient, I told you, right? What are the nutrient? The nutrient includes sugar, protein, mineral, lipid, water, salt. And the next organelle, which is again present only in the plant cell, is chloroplast. Okay, so again, it looks something similar to mitochondrial structure, as I told you, in order to remember it very easily, unbroken, a shell of a groundnut. Same, it is also something similar to that, and it is also going to have a double membrane. Okay, and inside the structure, if you look at it, we have a structure called as thylakoids. Okay, it is like a 1 rupee coin which is stacked one top of the other, and this collectively stacked structure is called as grana. Okay, so this grana is present inside the chloroplast. Okay, and this is the place in between wherein you can see it looks something similar to matrix, like how we what we have discussed in mitochondria. So these are the places where the chemical reaction will take place, especially a process called as photosynthesis. And the chloroplast contains a pigment called as chlorophyll. And like mitochondria, chloroplast also has its own DNA. Right? So remember, mitochondria also has own DNA apart from the nucleus. Similarly, chloroplast also has its own DNA apart from cell nucleus. Remember this. This is a very important point. And the function is to produce food through a process called as photosynthesis. I will be discussing this in detail when I discussed about photosynthesis. Now, coming to an end of an organelle understanding, cell organelles. So now let us compare and understand what are the organelles that are common in plant and animal, and what are the organelles which are specifically present only in plant and animal. So plant cells have a cell wall, not cell membrane, okay, which is made up of cellulose. And plant cell contains an organelle called as chloroplast. Okay, so that function is to produce food through photosynthesis, whereas animal cell lacks cell wall, also chloroplast. And plant cell have large vacuole, right, wherein the nutrient rich sap is going to be stored, whereas animal cell does not have any vacuole. Again, animal cell contains centrioles. Again, if you go back to the centriole lecture, I told you that these are involved in pulling up the chromosomes. That is involved in cell division. But the same centriole is absent in plant cell. Okay, now coming to the end of this session, in the next topic, we will be discussing about cell growth and cell differentiation. I hope this video lecture session is helpful for you to recall whatever I had discussed in the class. So whenever you are free, please look at this presentation so that you can able to recall the presentation that I have taught you in the class. Thank you.